Hey girlies, just a quick reminder before we dive into today's episode. The information shared on this podcast is intended to be general sports nutrition advice and education related to period recovery for female athletes. This is not specific to any one individual, and it may or may not apply to your situation. If you are looking for personalized guidance, be sure to apply to our RBSN Period Recovery Nutrition Coaching Program. Our 4-month period recovery program is designed to help you sustainably get your period back and keep it. You can apply now to get started in our program, and we'll leave the link for the program below. This is the Eat More Carbs Podcast. Hello and welcome back. This is the Eat More Carbs Podcast. We're Reilly, Beatty Sports Nutrition, and we're a team of dietitians, and we talk every Thursday about sports nutrition for the girlies. I'm Jenna, and I'm the host of this podcast.
And I'm Reilly. I'm the founder of Reilly Beatty Sports Nutrition. We like to call it around here RBSN.
We're super excited to talk with y'all today. Before we get into today's episode, we are going to do our high and low, so sharing just a little bit about our week, the good, and the parts we wish had gone a little bit differently. Reilly, as always, can you kick us off high and low? What's going on this week?
I usually start with my high, but I'm going to start with my low this week. I recently got my hair cut and colored like a couple weeks ago. Do you ever feel like you're like, my hair's not that bad? And then when you get it done, you're like, my hair was that bad. I look like a hyena.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
I just feel like, when you like post yourself on the internet all the time, you can like go back and like look at old content and be like, Reilly, what were you thinking? Like your hair was really that bad.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I just feel like I look like a completely different person. I feel like this happens with my nails sometimes too, where I'm like, they're not that bad. And then I go and I'm like, I'm the worst person at the salon right now. Like, oh my gosh. But I think like you can get away with it a little bit with your nails because like you don't see them like as much. I mean, you see them on your fingers, but you don't see them as much as like your hair. So sorry to everybody that saw my hair. I scheduled an appointment like much shorter in advance or much quicker around this time.
Okay, it's so funny because we've been on like a call for a long time this morning. And I was going to compliment you on how blonde your hair looks today.
Yeah, I got it done a couple weeks ago.
It looks good.
Thanks. But yeah, that's my low. So if you guys want to call me out my hyena hair ever in the future, please do that because maybe I just need a quick reminder. My high is also kind of silly. Jenna, your high like a couple months ago, I don't know why it like has literally stuck in my brain, but you recommended this like Banana Republic shirt from Costco. And it's probably just stuck in my brain because I love a good deal. I went and purchased because I was so influenced by you. There's like a white and black combo pack.
Yep.
Banana Republic.
Mm-hmm.
Great. I just want you to know that they now have a long sleeve version.
What? Okay. I need to end this podcast because I need to go to Costco right now.
I've been so excited to tell you, and it's been out for like 2 months, but I was like, I just have to wait to tell her on the podcast. So I am sorry for the delay.
I'm literally going to go. I love a Costco shirt.
I know. This is also seems to be a theme, but like that's how I feel like you're in your 30s is you love a Costco clothing deal.
I feel seen.
Yep. And everybody who's in their 20s or in your teens, just wait. Just wait, guys.
It will happen. I never thought I would be that girl, but here I am. So
such a good deal. I don't usually do a lot of Costco clothes. I feel like they don't usually fit me, but I feel like every once in a while you get like such a good clothing deal there.
Yeah. Like you can find a gem in all of the options, we'll call them.
There's like a million options every time we go. But yeah, you have to really just find the right ones, I feel like.
Oh, yeah.
How's your week going?
My week is going so good. My high is that I had an athlete get her period this morning. This is the first one. We've been working together for a couple of months. She's been working so hard and I am so proud of her. So huge shout out to her. It's such a big accomplishment. Always like a big deal, I feel like, to get the first one. Like, of course, every single time that we have an athlete get a period, like it's so exciting, but always a good time to celebrate that milestone and that accomplishment with a client. So that's my high.
I think the first one is always so like tricky because you're like feeling symptoms and you're like, is this ovulation? Is this PMS? Is my estrogen gone up? Has it gone up enough? And I think like after the first one, it's always like, okay, you're like, okay, well, this makes sense. Like got my period 2 weeks ago. So like this change in CM like means ovulation or this is a PMS symptom. But especially in the beginning as like you're kind of pushing through, it's so easy to overthink and then like get overwhelmed with it.
Yes. I feel like I kind of explain it to the clients that I have when they ask me like, how long is this going to take? And they're getting like frustrated because it's a long process. It's not a short process. And for some people, it's going to take longer amounts of times than it is for others. And the way that I know how to describe it to them is I'm like, you're running a race where we don't know where the finish line is. And we have to keep moving towards the finish line. That is the most important thing. But I understand that when you're running a race and you don't know if it's a 5K, a 10K, a marathon, an ultra marathon, that's really hard. And it can feel really hard to know if you're like pacing yourself correctly or making enough progress. So all of those feelings, your feelings are valid because you don't know where the finish line is. But the most important thing is that you are consistently making progress towards your finish line. And I feel like with her, she really trusted that and she got her period. So really happy.
You just stressed me out when you said like, I don't know where you don't know where the finish line is. But like, that's such a good analogy because that's exactly how it feels. And like the idea of like, if you go out too fast, then you're going to pull back, right? Like if you make too many changes too quickly, it's going to be too much. So that's such a good analogy. And I just felt that in my soul.
Yeah. It's not necessarily a fun one to think about. I talk about that a lot with clients, especially the ones who are maybe on like a couple months in and still haven't seen a period, but have seen a lot of signs. What they're going through is tough. It's hard for sure.
It is hard, but totally worth it. Just like running a race.
Exactly. And then once you get to the finish line, you're like, wow, that was worth it.
But usually with a race, you want to do it again. Like, we don't want to do this again, guys. Like,
No.
we don't want to do this again.
There's a difference there, but for
I
sure.
always tell my clients, I'm like, I love you so much. Like, we're going to be friends after this, but like, I don't want to see you again.
Yeah.
Like, maybe if you want to do sports nutrition stuff, but like, we're not doing this period recovery thing again, please.
100%. I'm like, stay in touch, keep me updated on all your fun life things, but never again for this. Okay.
Yes. What's your low for the week?
Okay. I'm going to continue my series on Arizona wild things that happened to me. This morning, we have been recording podcasts. I've been working with some clients and I have my huge like water cup that I always drink out of. It's my CSU Rams cup. Go Rams. I picked up my cup to drink and I have to drink consistently throughout the day. Like we all should be doing that. And I look into my cup and there's a fly in my water. I don't know what the bugs are doing here, but I'm not right with the animal world.
Yeah, you and the bugs of Arizona are nemesis. Like they're not.
I know. Thing I'm curious about, but I don't know if I really want to know is how long it was in there. Because a lot of times, like if I'm on a call, like I'm trying to maintain some type of eye contact, even if I'm taking a sip of water. And I wasn't like necessarily looking into my cup. And so then I stopped and I looked and I was like, oh no, that's my low.
I was like, how long has the fly been in the water?
Because I know it was sometime between like this morning when I filled it up and now.
Well, the good news is it's 2 hours behind there versus here. So if you were here, it would have been 2 hours longer that you had the bug. But
wait. No, I need to hold on to the positives in this case because oof, yikes.
I just got like that.
Today, we're actually talking about navigating holidays, specifically Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is a week away, so happy early Thanksgiving. But navigating that time when you're working through period recovery, it's something that can bring up a lot of feelings for our period recovery athletes. And I feel like I'm having quite a few conversations right now or even last week about how to navigate the holidays when you're working on period recovery. There are a lot of reasons that time frame can feel pretty stressful to athletes that are working on period recovery. But what are some of the reasons why athletes find this kind of a challenging time that you've seen, Reilly?
First off, before I answer this question, I cannot believe that we're talking about the holidays. Like I've been having this conversation so much as well. And I don't know where the time is going.
Yeah, time is flying. I can't believe it.
It's crazy. I think one of the main reasons that it's so stressful during the holidays is that like you're outside of your normal schedule. I don't know what you think, but even just like I've had travel over the last couple of months and like it just is always a little bit stressful going to a place that isn't your home. You're off your schedule a little bit. This can be really challenging and almost frustrating when you also have a goal. I feel like, at least personally, like I get into a really good rhythm when I'm at home. Like I have my schedule, I have my fuel, I have my workout schedule, I have like friends, family, I have like my routine. And then it can feel overwhelming when you go outside of your routine. Like personally, I'm somebody that loves to travel, but I also love to come back home. I notice that when I travel, oftentimes like my athletic performance will drop, like just personally speaking, because again, like you just don't have the comforts of home. Your schedule is just different. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I see this a lot. I'm having a lot of conversations. I work with runners specifically. I work with a lot of like high school and collegiate cross country track, and a lot of them are in kind of a break period right now. We've maybe had like the final meet of the season. We've had the state meet. We've had regionals, whatever it is. And we might be in like a few days off from scheduled training. And I think that's really stressful for athletes who are so used to having like the plan of what their training is going to look like every single day. And for a lot of those athletes, sometimes they might get some type of like a off-season training schedule from their coach. But for a lot of them, it's like, we're focusing on cross training. You are not training right now. This is your deload week. So it like really messes with the schedule of their training, just like you said. I think one of the other things that can be really challenging around this time, like you mentioned, if we're traveling and if we're at Aunt Jan's house or whoever house is hosting this year, but comments from friends and family.
Oh, I think that's just like the hardest part of this journey in general, like the comparison of yourself to others and then comments from other people. And I do feel like those naturally come up more during the holidays because maybe you haven't seen somebody for an extended period of time. Therefore, small sustainable changes that you personally have been working on, they might appear really big to somebody else who hasn't been watching you on a day-to-day basis.
I think that's such a good point to bring up, that we do work on small sustainable changes. But even for a lot of our athletes, like when they get their period back or they get to the end of the program and then they look back at all of the changes that they've made, or they compare what they're doing now for their fueling to what they were doing when they first showed up, and they're like, wow, I've come a long way. We don't necessarily see someone else on a day-to-day basis that's watching those small sustainable changes. So those family members or friends who haven't seen you in several months view that same kind of difference as something that happened rather quickly, even though for you it was something that we implemented over a long period of time.
Usually like comments are coming out and I feel like people like not necessarily like don't have a filter. They just like say these things because it's just such a stark change for them, right? Like an easy example is like, this is a very drastic example. You're eating a fourth of a sandwich and like somebody has been, watching you eat a fourth of a sandwich for 3 years. And then the next time they see you eat a whole sandwich, right? Like that's a really big change for them. Is it appropriate for them to comment on that? No, but they're going to see that change.
Yeah. We have to kind of like assume positive intent with a lot of these comments. A lot of these people, family members and friends, they love us. And maybe they're trying to say these comments from an encouraging standpoint, even though it isn't, like Reilly mentioned, appropriate to comment.
Yeah. And I think something else too is like the holidays are a really emotional time period for a lot of the people. Like emotions run high. And if people are struggling with their own fueling journey, right, they might be more sensitive to things. And so these comments and stuff like that might just come out more. And it's unfortunate and they're not appropriate, but that is something that you are going to have to manage.
We've talked a lot on previous episodes about how to have those conversations, if you're ready to have those conversations, or even like quick go-to responses for those conversations and comments come up. So we'll link some of those other episodes on how to kind of navigate those conversations. Today, we are going to talk a little bit about like how we can keep the goal of period recovery at the center of what you are doing with the holiday and all of your schedule changes. One of the things that we're kind of like keeping at the forefront of those goals is maintaining a positive energy balance. Why is a positive energy balance important, and what is a positive energy balance?
Yeah, just quickly, simply defining it. It's basically when your body has more energy coming in than going out, right? It basically allows your body to be in a state where the energy that's available is positive. You have energy available for everything that your body needs plus some. That's where you want you to be as an athlete, right? You don't want to be in a place where you do not have enough energy to go around. That's basically starvation. And I don't think we talk about it like that a lot. And I do think we should continue bringing up kind of that comparison.
How can we maintain a positive energy balance, or what are some easy ways that we can maintain a positive energy balance when we're just thinking about like that as a goal, even separate from Thanksgiving?
Obviously fueling appropriately, right? Like you're not going to lower your activity, especially if you are competing or you're in season or you have an athletic goal. So making sure that you're fueling your body properly. When we look at energy availability, it is kind of, again, that ratio or that comparison of the energy that's being expended by the body and both normal health functions, right? So your heart beating, your brain thinking, and then also on top of that, athletic performance, exercise expenditure. So to stay in a positive energy balance, we have to make sure that your body has all of the energy it needs for all of those different things.
Making sure that you have enough energy for all of those different things is a huge part of period recovery. One of the things that we've already mentioned is that we're kind of anticipating some training changes. Maybe you don't have organized training. Maybe you are in a deload week, or maybe the exercise that you are planning for the week is your turkey trot and you are used to running a 10K. So perhaps a lot of changes with training. How can we maintain a positive energy balance if we're anticipating a training decrease?
I mean, I think sticking to your normal fueling schedule as much as possible. When we look at the body, right, even when we look at, major training changes and something like an injury, your metabolism stays the same after you have a major injury for about 2 weeks. If you're drastically cutting intake after not training for 1 or 2 days, you're likely going to put your body in a state, at least acutely, of low energy availability.
Some of the ways that we can work towards maintaining that that positive energy balance, keeping up with your fueling, is having consistent meals and snacks throughout the day. If you're someone who's used to training and maybe you're going to have a few more recovery days, Reilly, what are some tips that you like to use with athletes for still maintaining meals and snacks throughout the day that maybe aren't incorporating pre and post training snacks?
I like to make sure that athletes are having 3 to 4 meals per day. And I would say, still 2 to 4 snacks per day. Oftentimes, if you want, you can combine your pre and your post snack into one fueling period of time. I think that is like an easy way to quickly modify things. That being said, though, I think the biggest thing for athletes is making sure that they're prioritizing their positive mindset with fueling. Because we can tell you 3 to 4 meals, 2 to 4 snacks, make this many carbs on your plate, this much protein, this much fat. But if you are not in a good mindset to do that, it does not matter. And if you do not switch your mindset from, I have to cut back on my rest day to I need to fuel my recovery, you're likely going to be underfueled.
I love the idea of looking at it from the lens of fueling your recovery. Recovery days are so important, not even from the standpoint of like period recovery, but just for athletes in general to incorporate recovery days into your plan. If you are working towards period recovery and your goal is to increase your energy availability and maybe work towards more of a positive energy balance, something that we can do or implement for this period of time when training looks a little bit different is, just like Reilly said, maintain your current intake. A lot of times we're looking at things and we might be increasing goals for maybe adding more carbohydrates or maybe adding more fats. But if right now that idea of adding sounds really intimidating, maintaining is such a good goal, especially with changes in training that could be occurring at the same time.
Yes. And I think that's such a big mistake that so many athletes make is they try to cut down their fuel on recovery days.
And we don't want to do that.
We don't. It goes back to though, like our body is not that responsive or that fluid, if that makes sense. It's much more about like what's happening over 7 days than it is just over one particular day. I always talk about this with athletes who have big competitions or maybe are competing for multiple hours in a day. If you have a very heavy competition day, the likelihood of you being in a positive energy balance that day is very slim. Your body is not going to likely be in a positive energy balance every single day. And so we have to keep that in mind because maybe we need to not like make up for it, but maybe we need to prioritize getting into a positive energy balance on those recovery days.
And recovery days are easier days to do that, to be in a positive energy balance because we don't have as much demand from long hours of training or long hours of competition.
And because exercise blunts appetite too.
Which you've talked a lot about even on our episode last week where we talked through your New York City Marathon and how that really impacted your appetite after you raced.
And actually throughout most of my training block too, with my increase in exercise, like an increase in running and mileage, I really struggled sometimes with my appetite. Making sure that I fueled my body properly was like essential for me being able to run that race.
So we've given a lot of advice about making sure that you're not decreasing your fueling on your recovery days or when you have less training during this time of Thanksgiving. We get asked a lot then, how do I know I'm still in a positive energy balance? I don't have an appetite when I'm not working out, kind of on the reverse side of things. I don't feel as hungry on my recovery days. So how can I guarantee that I am in a positive energy balance if I'm not training as much and I'm kind of outside of my routine? Aunt Jan's house doesn't have the same snacks that I do and all that sort of stuff. So how can I make sure that I'm not accidentally underfueling or decreasing my intake while I am in a different environment?
Sometimes as an athlete, you just have to make it a priority, right? You have to be intentional about it. Going back to, what does my normal routine look like? And am I somewhere within that area and those targets? As an athlete, sometimes you just have to be intentional about fueling your body. Like it's part of the job. And if you want to compete at a high level, you have to make fueling a priority. We don't want it to take over your life. That's not what I'm saying, but you might have to fuel differently than your friends at the table or parents or other family members. And that's totally okay because they're not the athlete that you are, but you have to just be intentional about it.
I think kind of playing off of that is like, don't skip meals or snacks. I know you already mentioned like the goal for the numbers of those, but I think it's almost really easy to do this, especially if you're like in a different environment, you're out like, let's just say Black Friday shopping with your family and friends and no one else is stopping for a meal or for a snack. That's when like that prioritization of your fueling becomes so important because even though the people around you might not be following the same patterns you are, you have to make it a priority to make sure that you don't go long periods of time without fueling and you don't accidentally skip meals and snacks.
I'm so glad you brought this up because I'm so embarrassed about the story, but I have to tell it because I do think it is like a really good example story. And I also think that people forget that like just because we're dietitians, like doesn't mean that we're not humans. So recently, like in October, so a couple weeks ago, I was in Nashville for a food and nutrition conference for dietitians. On the first like main day that I was there, I remember sitting in my hotel room at like 9 o'clock at night and talking to my husband and telling him how I didn't feel great. And I thought that maybe I didn't have an appetite because of the training, because of the nausea, like that was something that was happening. And he was like, well, what did you eat for dinner? And I was like, oh my gosh, like I didn't eat dinner because I had been at different events and they always have food out. But I feel like every time I go to an event, like I'm not eating the food, especially if it's like a tapas situation. Like I'm talking to people, like walking around, taking pictures, like all of that stuff. I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't eat dinner. And he goes, okay, well, like, what did you eat for lunch? And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't eat lunch because I had been around food all day. I was talking to people. I was off my normal routine, like, right? Like we work from home. So our schedule is very flexible. I know, okay, I need to eat every couple of hours. But just because I was so busy, I forgot to eat lunch and dinner. And like, this is literally my job, right? I grabbed a cereal, a banana, milk and all that stuff like that I got at the expo for dinner, whatever, at 9:30. And then I was so intentional, like obnoxiously intentional about fueling the next day because I knew I had to run that day. And I knew that if I didn't fuel my body, I wasn't going to be able to run. Again, like I just had to be more mindful about it and then more intentional about it. And obviously I learned from my mistake, but I do think it's so easy to kind of get wrapped up in the chaos of the holidays or when you're traveling or different things like that. And you just have to make it a priority or it might not happen.
It's so easy for that to happen because there is so much going on. There's usually a lot of exciting things going on. You might be spending time with family or friends that you haven't seen in a while. And all of that kind of like adds up and all of a sudden you can look down at your clock and be like, oh my gosh, it's 9:30 at night and I haven't fueled. Like I think that's so common and so easy, especially for athletes to do when it's like such an exciting time. And same thing with you at the expo. Like there was so much going on. You were so excited to be there and like see presentations and friends and catch up and all of that stuff. And I think it's a common thing that happens. So going back to the idea that like making it a priority and finding ways to make it a priority, especially when you're working on period recovery, it's so important. So that way you don't accidentally decrease your fueling through those days.
Yes, I was so offended by myself. I was talking to Robs and he's like, this is your job. And I was like, I know, but I'm a human. And like, this happens. This happens. And again, we talk about this all the time, but it's like how you respond to things, right? So like if you have, you know, an off day during the holidays, like we don't need to have a crazy response, right? We just like get back to normal on things. Like we're more intentional about going back to our original plan and getting back to our goals. And I think that's also something that's really important for the holidays too, is like not making drastic changes or things like that because of maybe holiday meals or foods or things like that.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up. The idea of making drastic changes in response to or in preparation for a holiday meal. I think so many people have kind of gotten into this idea. You hear about it on like news stations and all that sort of stuff about like the number or average amount of calories someone consumes at a Thanksgiving meal, which then time causes a lot of stress for people. So they'll kind of like save up or avoid fueling all day leading into a holiday meal. And that is not what we want you to do. We want to maintain that consistency with fueling even up to a meal that we might not be as certain about the exact amount of things within a meal. At RBSN, we aren't really big on calorie counting, but if you're someone who is calorie counting, that would be a big time that I would encourage you to put it down. I feel like I hear all the time, and this isn't a What Drives Me Bananas episode, but people saying if you don't know the exact amount of calories in something, overestimate it when you're logging it on your calorie tracker. And that's pretty much the opposite of what I would recommend on Thanksgiving. This specifically relating to period recovery, but I would say you're likely underestimating the amount of calories in that dish from Aunt Jan's casserole or whatever it is, and that would lead to unintentional underfueling. And again, we don't want to underfuel on these days. We want to make sure we maintain that positive energy balance. So challenge yourself to leave the calorie counter at home and definitely don't save up for the amount that you could potentially be eating because that's an easy way that we can accidentally underfuel.
I'm so glad that that you brought that up because I feel like almost every single one of our athletes in our period recovery program like comes in underestimating, or I guess overestimating. That's the right word. Overestimating how much energy they're consuming. I remember specifically somebody recently, right, was like, I'm eating 2,500 calories. And then like we run their food log and we analyze it and it's like 1,700. Like that's a big difference day to day. And I do think there's such a fear of like you're underestimating that people are overestimating and it's leaving them underfueled.
Right. Which is another reason why we really lean into the plate method with our athletes and we try to avoid calorie counting because it isn't a perfect science. And it is something that like when we get too attached to the numbers can be a little bit dangerous. We're going to talk next week about building our performance plates for Thanksgiving and kind of working out how we can approach a holiday meals that make it feel a little bit less stressful in terms of making sure that you have balance, you have foods that you love, things that you want to incorporate. But for anyone who's not familiar with the performance plate method, Reilly, can you kind of walk us through what that would look like so that way we can keep up with our fueling, make sure that we aren't accidentally underfueling or decreasing our intake when we're just like using the plate method?
We love the performance plate method. I feel like we use it with everybody, and that's where we start off with a lot of our athletes within our period recovery program. I mean, everywhere from high school athletes to college athlete, professional, like everybody really does find a lot of value in the performance plate method. We like to start off our athletes with like what we call a base day plate. So when we're looking at a plate, we're looking at building a meal that basically breaks out the plate into 3 sections, right? You have 1/3 grains and starches, which we like to just call carbohydrates for ease, 1/3 protein, and then 1/3 color, which is fruits and vegetables. And then we recommend 2 to 3 servings of fat in that meal. This is a wonderful place for everybody to start. Again, it's just a really easy way for you to build your plate in every single setting. So if you go to Chipotle, if it's Thanksgiving, if it's a smoothie shop, right, you can always kind of come back to this model where 1/3 carb, 1/3 color, 1/3 protein, and 2 to 3 servings of fat.
It's your base to come back to in moments where you maybe are unfamiliar with options that will be available to you, which I know is another component of fueling at Thanksgiving because we are likely in a scenario where we didn't make everything or we didn't prepare everything. Maybe you are, and if that's the case, cool, but we can still use a base day plate for kind of building your specific Thanksgiving plate. What if someone is still exercising throughout the entire holiday? How can we navigate it then if training doesn't decrease?
Keep doing what you're doing, right? Like, I don't think we need to make any modifications. If you're still training, and even if you're not still training, like you're an athlete. So just because it's Thanksgiving, it doesn't mean that you don't need your pre and your post fuel, right? Thanksgiving is just one meal of the day. You don't need to make modifications because again, you are still an athlete.
Exactly. You go run a 5K, you do family football or family pickleball, like that's still movement and all movement is movement and we still have to fuel.
Yep. I think it's actually very complicated, but having a good fueling foundation is actually very simple.
Any final tips for helping athletes maintain a positive energy balance and not decreasing their intake?
I think a big thing is mindset, right? Like just making sure that we are feeling confident with our fueling plan right now. And then as we move into the holidays, big thing too, kind of related to mindset is like, let's not make any drastic changes if something doesn't go according to plan. I'm type A, I'm a planner, right? If I don't have things go to plan, I'm stressed. So I get it. I understand. You also have to remember, like sometimes we have to be flexible with our plans and we can always have a plan B, a plan C, a plan D. One day is not going to ruin everything. It's going to be okay.
I love that. Consistency is an important part of period recovery. And we can approach this from the viewpoint of just maintaining consistency with our intake. So that way we don't accidentally underfuel. And just like we kind of already talked about, like maybe we aren't looking at the goal of this week of adding an additional serving or adding an additional snack. Maybe we're just approaching this from the standpoint of we're maintaining the consistency and the small sustainable changes that we've already made. We're not decreasing. We are going to resume doing our training updates now that Reilly has officially ended her first full marathon training block. So sharing just a little bit about the training that we're doing, what's next for us, if Reilly's already signed up for more races, sharing with all of you all of our running updates since we are in our running era right now. So Reilly, what is training like this week for you? Are you doing a turkey trot? Have we signed up for 6 more marathons? What's going on with you?
I don't know, Jenna. What do you think I should do? What should I do now? I'm looking for opinions. I have an idea, but I want to hear what other people are thinking. I don't know.
Well, I know what your coach is thinking. So I feel like I'm biased in that because I would say
Do we think that, okay, so I think that there's options, right? I think looking right now, I think I have some options.
Okay.
Because I need to be really mindful about my current state of life, right? Where I just finished a marathon and I need to, I don't need to go run another marathon in 2 months. So I'm thinking right now that I want to maybe work on like building my aerobic base, because I do think that was something that I could have worked on. Like, I feel like my training block went pretty good, but I felt like I would wish I had a stronger base going into that training block. I also want to PR, I think, in the half. I think I want to go in that direction. My PR before I had Charlie was like 135-ish. So I don't know if I can get that. But I just feel like the last couple of races, I've really enjoyed myself, but I want to like PR, like I want to PR like a fast. I want to run a race. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cause like the last half I did in Asheville, like I was there for the vibes. I was there to have like a good experience. And then obviously with New York, I've never run a marathon. So I PR'd, but that's not the best I can do, obviously, because it's my first.
It wasn't a race because you didn't know like where your base was.
Yeah, like I never run a race before. Like I don't know what I was like, who knew like what was going to happen. So I feel like those kind of go hand in hand with like maybe trying to get faster and like just building a good base. Right now, it's really hard for me to run more than 4 days a week because I just start to kind of get like nagging injuries and stuff like that. So maybe trying to build like a bigger base. And then I don't know, I kind of want to like race a half.
I love that idea.
Karis is very upset right now because I don't think that's what her plan is. We'll see. I just want to run fast, I think.
Yeah.
I just have felt strong in my last races, but I want to feel fast, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. Do you have any opinions on things?
I love the idea that like you've just had a race that really pushed that like endurance side of things, and that like you could do a shorter distance and push for speed, just so that way you have a different focus. Because I think that like having different training focuses like helps maintain like the interest in the sport, if that makes sense.
I was actually talking to somebody else about this and how it's so cool that when you say that like you run, or like people say that they're a runner, depending on what event you do, like it's so different. Like 5K training is so different than like marathon or ultra training, or even like it's so different. So like there's so many different things you can do with just like the concept of running.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. Karis will listen to this and then tell me, or we'll have probably already talked by the time that this was out, and maybe I'll have a different direction. But as of today, that's what I think I'm going for. But over the next couple of weeks, I'm just going to probably be doing some like strength stuff and low impact things.
I love it.
What about you? Do we have anything planned?
I don't have anything planned. However, I usually run a half marathon in January, and I'm probably going to want to run it again. It's a local half marathon, so it's a really easy one for me to run. I don't have to go anywhere, and it's a fun race because it runs kind of through ASU's campus and up through Old Town Scottsdale, which is just fun. And it's been one that I've done before, so I'm super familiar with it. Not necessarily something that I would be racing, but it would give me purpose for like what I am working towards, which is always fun. I think that the biggest thing for me right now is that like it's finally the time of year that I can do more longer runs, because in the summer here and even in the spring here, it's just too hot to be outside for so long. So I'm kind of entering that season, and I'm really looking forward to like incorporating long runs again on the weekend, that being part of like my training versus just like a couple of like 5 to 6 mile runs throughout the week. Similarly to you, I'm incorporating some strength training in there as well, and just like kind of some cross training too, to make sure that I'm keeping myself healthy, because that's the most important part. Like, even though I maybe wish I could run every single day of the week, like I know my body can't do that. So finding other ways to make sure that like what I'm working towards in a way that is healthy for me.
And everybody, you're getting the inside scoop that Jenna and I are trying to get into Chicago.
Yes, that is the big goal.
Big goal. So we both entered the lottery. So we're trying. We'll see. Anybody knows anyone at Bank of America? Let us in.
Literally though.
Yeah. So I think like that's like long-term goal.
Mm-hmm.
But
I think goal for me, regardless of what marathon it is that we run one together, not necessarily like racing one another by any means, but doing it from the standpoint of like having a good time and running together. Because we haven't run together since we lived in Las Vegas together. We used to run quite a bit together. So just like doing that for fun, because that's the whole point of this, is like we're having fun. Like I'm never going pro in this sport or anything like that, but I think that would be so fun to run together.
I agree. Yeah, so I think 2026 is I know we just went on a different tangent, but 2026, we're at least running something together. I told that to Rob, and he's like, can you just run like a 1 mile fun run? Like, does it have to be a marathon?
Yes. Yes, it does.
Is Nolan entering Chicago too?
He didn't. No. He was like, okay. Honestly, I was kind of surprised because I thought he would. And he was like, I would go up there to watch you run it and be like your cheering spectator, but he's like, I wouldn't want to go run it without you. He's like, I would much rather run a race together that wasn't Chicago than like go and run Chicago. Like he just like wants to run, which I think is sweet.
Are you going to get a treadmill? Are you going to do treadmill work if you get in?
Well, I would have to. I would have to. Yeah.
This is so funny. I like literally, I think on the night of the marathon, I was like, after I finished, I told Robs, I was like, I think I need a treadmill. He's like, go run outside. I was like, I think I need a treadmill.
Oh my gosh, so funny. I love it though.
Well, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed about the hamstring too.
Yeah. Sending all the good vibes towards our Chicago lottery. If you do have questions for Reilly and I about navigating the holiday, about fueling, period recovery, or even about our running, please let us know. You can always leave them in the comments of this podcast, or you can find us online. You can find Reilly on Instagram at easy.sports.nutrition, and you can find me at jenna.fisher.nutrition. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. Please make sure you rate, subscribe, and review. And as always, remember to eat more carbs.